record this one. Yes. Yes. So chapter 3 name free consent, legality of object and contingent contract. So there are three parts in chapter 3. Till now we have discussed in chapter 1 is about introduction to the business law. We have discussed then what do you mean by contract, what do you mean by agreement, we have seen. Then we discussed about types of contract. In the second chapter we discussed about offer and acceptance, consideration and capacity to the contract we have discussed. So now the next concept here in chapter 3 is free consent. So can you tell me what do you mean by free consent? Free consent means what? We have discussed this because it is one of the rules of valid contract. Free consent is one of the rules of valid contract. That means free consent is necessary to form a contract. So you know, right, free consent is necessary to form a contract. So what do you mean by free consent? Free consent means what? Can you tell me what do you mean by free consent? Free consent means without any force, with their own will. What do you mean by free consent? Without any force, with their own will is known as free consent. So now first thing we need to know, what do you mean by consent? So first thing comes is consent. Consent means the consent of the party means there should be a perfect meeting of minds of the both the party. What do you mean by perfect meeting of minds of the both the party? That means two parties. Suppose there is A and B, so there are two parties to the contract. They should agree upon same thing in a same sense. That means if there is any one subject matter, both the parties should agree on that subject matter, and both the parties should agree either to buy or to sell the particular thing. So that is the meaning of consent of the party. So consent of the party means here what? See this, meeting of mind. Meeting of mind means both the parties should be on the same page. So that is the meaning of consent. So now it is very clear what do you mean by consent. So now next thing is free consent. Now we know consent means perfect meeting of mind. What do you mean by free consent? Free consent we have already discussed, that is without any force. If there is any force while you are getting the consent from other party, it does not amount to free consent. So free consent means without any force. See this, free consent is the consent which is obtained by a free will of the party, and neither party should have been forced or induced to give his consent. In other word, what you can say for free consent? Free consent means consent obtained not with the help of coercion, undue influence, fraud, misrepresentation, and mistake. So, if consent is obtained with the help of these five things, then it cannot be said as free consent because these things are comes under voidable contract. So, what do you mean by voidable contract? Voidable means avoidable. Avoidable by whom? Avoidable at the option of the party whose consent is not obtained freely. So that is the meaning of voidable contract. If it is a voidable contract, then in that case there is no free consent. So now we know consent and free consent. So now first thing comes under free consent is coercion. So my question is whether there is any free consent under coercion. Can you tell me yes or no? Free consent is there under coercion, yes or no? Can you tell me? Free consent is there under coercion, yes or no? Can you tell me? Can you tell me now? No, free consent is not there. Yes, Ashish is saying correctly and Anusha is also correct. Free consent is not there. Amrita is also saying correct answer. So now coercion means what? Can you tell me what do you mean by the word coercion? Coercion means that is with the physical threat given to one particular party. Coercion means what? It is a physical injury or physical harm given to one particular party. In that case, it is said to be an act of coercion. So now we need to know the meaning of coercion. So now you see coercion means what? The term coercion implies compelling a person to enter into a contract. So what do you mean by compelling a person? Can you tell me what do you mean by compelling a person? Compelling is nothing but forcing an individual to enter into a contract. If you are forcing an individual to enter into a contract, in that case there is no free consent. Okay, now in such cases consent of the parties obtained by the use of force or under a threat. So my question is, threat to commit suicide, whether it amounts to coercion. Threat to commit suicide, whether it amounts to coercion. Can you answer? Threat to commit suicide. So I say that if you don't give me 5 lakhs, I will commit a suicide, whether it amounts to coercion. Yes, answer. Threat to commit suicide, whether it amounts to coercion or not. Can you tell me? Threat to commit suicide. See, suicide means you are giving or you are imposing injury to your body, isn't it? So you are punishing your own body. So again, there is a physical injury is involved. If you are committing suicide, that means again physical injury is involved. So threat to commit suicide also comes under coercion. Threat to commit suicide also comes under coercion. So now coercion is committing or threatening to commit any act forbidden by IPC. So now you know what do you mean by IPC, Indian Penal Code. So under Indian Penal Code, there are several acts or there are several rules mentioned what is right and what is wrong. So usually it states what is wrong. So Indian Penal Code or forbidden by Indian Penal Code, if there is any act, it comes under coercion or unlawful detaining or threatening to detain any property. Suppose you are forcing someone to give their property with the help of some physical force, in that case also it is a coercion to the prejudice of any person whatever, with the intention of causing an any injury to a person to enter into an agreement. So these things amount to coercion. In short, what you can say, coercion means physical injury given by the party to another person to make that person to enter into an agreement. Okay, so that is the meaning of coercion. So what example you can give for coercion? See this. Threat to commit suicide is also coercion. So now X gives a threat to Y to kill him if Y fails to sign the bond to transfer Y's flat in Mumbai, which is in the name of X, is an act which is against the law and becomes coercion. That means what? So now I am X and you are Y. So now I will give a threat to kill you if you are fail to transfer your property. Suppose let us imagine that you have a property in Bombay. So now I say that if you don't transfer your property in Bombay to my name, I will kill you. This amounts to coercion. This amount to coercion. So this is very clear. What do you mean by coercion? So now what are the legal rules are involved in coercion? We need to see. First thing is it is a criminal act. Criminal Act means what? It is forbidden by IPC, Indian Penal Code. So coercion is a criminal act, whereas undue influence. So my question, whether undue influence is a criminal act? You know, coercion is a criminal act. Whether undue influence is also a criminal act? Can you tell me? Whether undue influence is also a criminal act? Can you tell me now? Whether it is a criminal act or not? Undue influence. Undue influence means what? You know, right? What do you mean by undue influence? There are two party. One party is in a superior position, other party is in an inferior position. So one party who is in a superior position will dominate the power or uses the power to gain the consent from the other party who is in the inferior position. That we need to discuss later. So in the case of undue influence, what happens? It is not a criminal act. But in the case of coercion, it is a criminal act. So now we know coercion. Example also we see. So now first rule, essential or rules regarding the coercion. First one, it must be committing or threatening to commit any act forbidden by IPC. We have discussed. Second one, coercion must be unlawful detaining of property belonging to other. That means you are claiming or you are forcing someone to give their property. So there should be some subject matter. in the contract. That subject matter is, in this case or in coercion case, is others property. So you want to gain others property by giving them a physical injury or harm. So that is the meaning of coercion. So second condition is coercion must be an unlawful detaining of property belonging to other. Third one, act of coercion must be done with an intention of causing the other party to enter into contract. Suppose if you have no intention of forming the contract itself, it doesn't amount to coercion. That means what? So now I will tell you that I am going to kill you if you don't transfer the property. So that doesn't amount to coercion. Why? Because I should have an intention to create a contract. That means I should take some writing. In writing, I should take from you. So in some writing, or I should make some agreement from the other party, then only it will amount to contract. Coercion may be by the way of threat to commit suicide. So this one we have discussed. So committing the suicide amounts to coercion. So last point is threat to file a suit is cannot be considered as coercion. Why? So threat to file a suit cannot be considered as coercion. Why? Can you tell me? Giving a threat to file a suit in the court of law. What do you mean by suit? Case. Case in the court of law is not amounts to coercion. Why? Very simple. Very simple. Can you tell me why it is not a coercion? Why it is not a coercion? Anyone, can you answer why it is not a coercion? Yes, threat to file a suit in the court of law is not a coercion. Why? Anyone, unmute yourself and answer or comment in the chat box. Yes. Akamsha, Ankita, Anusha, Ashish, Kushal, Nishant, Pooja, Shifali. Anyone can answer. Threat to file a suit in the court of law doesn't amount to coercion. So there is no answer. I will tell you why. Because it is not forbidden by IPC. That means filing the suit is not forbidden by law. Anyone can file against anyone can file a suit against any party, isn't it? So it is not an offense. It is not an criminal act. That is why it doesn't amount to coercion. So there are 5 points essential or rules regarding the coercion. So I hope these points are clear. So last one we need to know, when there is a coercion, what is an effect of the contract? What is that effect will bring to the particular contract? So when there is a coercion involved in a contract, contract becomes what? Voidable. Contract becomes voidable at the option of the party whose consent is not obtained freely. So now it is very clear, coercion means there is no valid contract. Coercion means the contract becomes voidable. Coercion doesn't mean that it is a void agreement. It is a voidable agreement. That means the parties with whose consent is obtained not freely. The party from whom the consent is not obtained freely, that party has two options. Suppose A and B, I am forcing B to give his property. Now B has two options. What is those two options? One, he can continue with the contract, or second, he can cancel the contract. What are those two options? That is the meaning of voidable. One, he can continue with the contract, or he can cancel the contract. So now it is very clear the concept of coercion. Any doubt regarding the concept of coercion, you can ask me now. Any doubt regarding the concept of coercion, you can ask me now. Any doubt? Yes. Unmute yourself and ask if there is any doubt regarding the concept of coercion. So very simple, small concept we need to discuss. Coercion, undue influence, fraud, like that. Very small concept. So any doubt regarding coercion? Any doubt regarding coercion? I hope there is no doubt. Whether there is any doubt regarding the coercion? No, right? Can you comment in the chat box if there is any doubt or not? Pooja is saying no doubt. Akamsha is saying no doubt. Kushal is saying no. Anusha is saying no. Okay. So Ashish also yes. No. So now we know what do you mean by coercion and what are the rules of coercion. We know it is a physical injury. Now there is one case law. There is one case law we need to discuss before moving into undue influence. So what is this case law? Case law regarding coercion. So this case law regarding coercion. So Ranganayakamma versus Alvar Setti. Ranganayakamma versus Alvar Setti, 1889. So very small case law we need to see. See this young girl married a young married girl of 13 years. So there was a young girl who married at the age of 13 years, was forced to adopt a baby, was forced to adopt a baby or baby boy by the relative of her husband who just died. That means what? Here that young girl's husband is died. Now their relative, that means husband's relative saying that young girl should adopt a boy, or else what they will do, they will not what they will do, they will not give the body for cremation, they will not give the body for cremation. See this, they even prevented the removal of the dead body of her husband for cremation until she gave her that consent. That means until she says, yes, I will adopt a boy, that dead body will not be removed from that particular case. Why she should adopt a boy? Can you tell me why she should adopt a boy? It is given in the case that to succeed the business of her husband, to succeed the business of her husband. That means now husband died, right? So to continue the business of the husband, that young girl should adopt someone as her child, as her child. So that is the meaning of this one. So here judgment is given in the court of law that consent of the girl was not free. Why it is not free? Now they are saying that we will not allow the cremation of the dead body. So again this is one kind of giving physical injury, physical torture to the person. So see this, that is the reason it is said that the consent is obtained with the help of coercion, and she was at a liberty to set aside or cancel the contract. That means what? Young girl can either continue with the contract or she can cancel the contract. So there are two options to the young girl. So this type of contract is voidable because her consent was not obtained freely. That means her consent was obtained with the help of coercion. So any doubt regarding this very small case, Ranganayakamma versus Alvar Setti, 1889. So any doubt you can ask. Any doubt you can ask regarding this case law. Ranganayakamma versus Alvar Setti, 1889. Whether there is any doubt regarding this one case law. This type of case law comes for 6 mark. 6 mark case law is there. One case law comes. So I hope there is no doubt regarding this case law. No doubts, right? So I hope everything is clear. Till now, whatever we have discussed, everything is clear. Yes. So now, next topic we need to see is undue influence. Next thing we need to see is undue influence. So what do you mean by undue influence? Whenever you hear the word undue influence, first thing should come to your mind that there are two parties. So what that two party here? One party is in a superior position. That means one party is in a higher position and one more party is in an inferior position. Inferior position means it is a weaker party. One party which is a stronger party and one more party is a weaker party. So what here happens? Stronger party will do some act. With the help of that, what happens? Stronger party gets the consent from weaker party. How it gets the consent from weaker party? Using their power. Stronger party has more power, so that party will use their power to get the consent from weaker party. So that is the meaning of undue influence. See this, a contract is said to be induced by undue influence where the relations subsisting between the party are such that one of the party is in a position to dominate the will of the other and uses that position to obtain unfair advantage over the other. So here the meaning of the word unfair advantage is also important. Not only an advantage, it should be a unfair advantage. So if there is no unfair advantage, that means if there is no undue influence. So now we need to see in detail. So what is the undue influence? What are the example comes under undue influence? So see this. So now essential or legal rules for valid undue influence. See this. First one party must be in a position to dominate the will of the other. A party in a contract would be in such a position when one party can dominate the will, there are certain conditions. First one, he holds a real or apparent authority over the other. So what example you can give? Master and servant, boss and subordinate, master servant, boss and subordinate, police and inspector and constable. See this, inspector, constable, one is a boss, one and other person is working under their behalf. So in these cases, the party which is in higher position can influence the other party. So that is the meaning of undue influence. Suppose teacher and student also. So teacher is in a higher position. So teacher can influence his power. He can use that power to induce the party to enter into a contract. So that is the meaning of this one. Undue influence. See this. Second one. He stands in a fiduciary relationship with the other. That means father and son relationship. Again, father is a higher party, son is a weaker party. Doctor, patient. See this. One more example. Teacher, student. So these are the example for undue influence. So now, third one, he makes a contract with another person who is in a mental distress by a reason of old age or illness. So now what happens? Now we can give the example here. So now there is one old lady. So now there is a old lady. She has three sons. There is a old lady. She has three sons. So now what she will do? And she has some illness. Okay. So she is not keeping well. So now she is in the hospital. So now what she will do? She will transfer the property, entire property to the younger son, transfer the entire property to the younger son. So here younger son did some influence. Some influence means some unfair measures he has taken. Why he can take such unfair measures? Because there is a relationship between son and mother. Son and mother relationship is there. Or else what is the general procedure? If there is a property, it should be divided equally between all the three sons, isn't it? If there is a property, it should be divided equally between all the three sons, isn't it? Whether my voice is audible now? Can you tell me whether my voice is audible? Because I lost the connection. Whether it is audible? Yes, right? So here, see this. I am talking about in general sense, the old lady has three sons, right? So property should be divided between them equally. But due to mental illness, younger son, what he will do? He will use some unfair measure and transfers entire property in his name. In that case, we can say that son has exercised undue influence over his mother. So this is the case of undue influence. See this. He makes a contract with another person who is in a mental distress by the reason of old age or illness amounts to undue influence. So that is the first point. Under first point, there are three conditions we have discussed. So now second point, he must be in a superior position to obtain an unfair advantage over weaker party. So for essential rules of coercion under influence, for whatever the case may be, so one thing you can say that first you should know the definition, or you should know the meaning of coercion or under influence, and from the definition itself you can from one point. That's what they have done basically. See this. If you see the definition from that one point they have taken and they have made one essential rules. So you can also do the same. If you know the definition properly, you can take one point and make a rule. Okay. So now one party superior means your father, son, we have discussed. Father, son, teacher, student, police, constable, doctor, patient, everything comes. Third one. Dominant person must have obtained unfair advantage. Here, weaker person should not obtain unfair advantage. Dominant person, that means father should obtain unfair advantage over son. Not son is obtaining unfair advantage over the father. It is not vice versa. So it is very important. Only dominant person. Effect. What is the effect of the contract if there is undue influence? It is the same as in the case of coercion. In the case of undue influence, contract becomes voidable. Contract becomes voidable at the option of the party whose consent is not obtained freely. So here voidable contract. In the case of coercion also, in the case of undue influence also, it is a voidable contract. It is very clear. So now we need to differentiate. Now we need to differentiate between coercion and undue influence. How to differentiate between coercion and undue influence? Can you tell me any one difference, any one very simple difference between coercion and undue influence? Anyone can tell? Anyone can tell coercion and undue influence? Any one difference you can tell? Very simple. We have discussed this. We have discussed this. I have already told one difference. Main difference I have already told. So what is that? Can you tell me? What is the one difference between coercion and undue influence? Yes, anyone? What is that difference? One difference. Can you tell me now? Yes. See, first thing you can say that which is a criminal act. Can you tell me which is a criminal act? Coercion or undue influence? Which is a criminal act? Which is a criminal act? Please comment. Which is a criminal act? Coercion or undue influence? Which is a criminal act? Coercion or undue influence? Coercion. See this. Ankita Nishant is saying coercion. Coercion is a criminal act. So now there is one difference. Coercion is a criminal act, but undue influence is not a criminal act. So that is one difference, isn't it? So like that, we need to find out the difference. See this. So now first one, coercion. Difference between coercion and undue influence. First one, the consent is given by a person under a threat of an offense. But in the case of undue influence, it is a moral influence. So in the case of undue influence, what happens? There is no physical injuries involved. Only using influence or only using his power to gain the advantage. So that is the first difference. Second one, it is mainly physical in character. But here, in the case of undue influence, it is moral in character. It doesn't involve physical injury. It involves mental pressure. Mental pressure. That is the second difference. See, coercion is a criminal act. Undue influence is not a criminal act. That is the third one. Very simple. These and all you can write it in your own word. If you know the meaning, you can easily make the difference. So now fourth one is it may proceed either from contracting party or from third party. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? Coercion can proceed either from contracting party or from third party. Means what? Can you tell me? Can you give me the example here? See this. Now A, B, C. There are three parties. A, B, C. So now B says to A. B says to A that I am going to kill you if you don't transfer the property of yours in my name. In my name. That means B is going to kill A if A doesn't transfer his property in B's name. But what B will do now? What B will do? B will give some money. B will give 5 lakh to C. B will give 5 lakh to C and says that you should kill A if A fails to transfer the property. That means here you see here there is a main contract between A and B. C is a third party. So third party can be used to obtain the consent. That means third party can kill if transfer of property does not happen. So that is the meaning of the this one, this sentence. See this. It may proceed either from contracting party or from a third party. But in the case of undue influence, what happens? It is normally exercised by the contracting party only. So, what do you mean by contracting party only? Here, if there is ABC, in the case of undue influence, C cannot make an influence. One who wants the consent, that person itself should make an influence. That is the meaning of this one. See this. So now B wants a property in his name. That means B, suppose B is a son, A is a father. So in that case, son is now doing some unfair things and C cannot do unfair things because C is not the son of A. C is not the son of A. A is a father, B is a son, C is a third party. So third party cannot make an influence. But in the case of coercion, third party can cause injury to the contracting this one offerer. Yes, so that is the meaning of this one. Fourth point. Now fifth one, intention of coercion is causing any person to enter into an agreement. Yes, that is true. If there is no intention to enter into an agreement, then there is no coercion. But in the case of undue influence, what happens? Intention of undue influence is influencing any other person. by the use of superior power over him by other person to gain unfair advantage. So in the case of undue influence, what you can say, there need not be an intention to enter into a contract. Their intention is just to take unfair advantage of the other party, just to obtain the property of other party. They did not want it in a document or in a writing. So that is the meaning of this one, undue influence. See this. Now last difference we see, beside cancelling the contract, aggrieved party can claim damages from defaulting party. Yes, because suppose one person caused injury to you, you can obtain compensation from that particular party. Suppose I have injured you, then you can go to the court of law and you can obtain compensation. But in the case of undue influence, how you will say it in the court of law? It is not possible. What you will say, that one particular party influenced me, and that's why I gave the consent. The court of law will not agree for that matter, because there is no proof. In the case of undue influence, what happens? There is no proof at all. Why? Because it is a mental act. It is a mental act and not a physical act. So that is the meaning of this one. Say this. The aggrieved party can only cancel the contract. It cannot claim damages in the case of undue influence. But in the case of coercion, it can claim the damages from the defaulting party. So these are the things comes under coercion and undue influence. So if there is any doubt regarding the difference now, difference between coercion and undue influence, if there is any doubt, you can ask me. If there is any doubt, you can ask me. Difference between coercion and undue influence. If there is any doubt, whether there is any doubt, coercion and undue influence. Any doubt? Coercion, undue influence, meaning, rules, and difference. Any doubt? No doubt, right? I hope there is no doubt. Whether concept is clear, right? Coercion and undue influence. I hope the concept is very clear. So I hope there is no doubt. So no one is giving the answer. So I assume that there is no doubt. Yes. So now what we are going to see is yes. So now misrepresentation. Next thing is misrepresentation. Misrepresentation we need to see. So now next topic is misrepresentation. Till now we have discussed coercion and undue influence. Now next one is misrepresentation. What do you mean by misrepresentation? So can you tell me whether misrepresentation happens with an intention to deceive the party or without an intention to deceive the party? Very important. First thing you need to know here, whether there is an intention to deceive the party or there is no intention to deceive the party. Can you tell me? Ankita Rao is saying with intention. Okay. What about others? What about others? With or without intention? Can you tell me? We are talking about misrepresentation and not fraud. See this carefully. Not fraud. Yes, Amrita is saying without intention. So without intention is a correct answer. So with the intention, if you are doing any particular act, that means what? You know the falsity of that subject matter. If you know the falsity, that means if you know what you are going to do, then how it can become misrepresentation? It becomes a fraud. If you don't know what you are going to do, or if you have no intention to harm the other party, then only it becomes a misrepresentation. So it is very clear now, it is without an intention to deceive the other party. See this. So what is the meaning of this one? It is a false statement which the person making it honestly believes it to be true, or which he does not know to be false. So it includes non-disclosure of material fact or facts without an intention of deceiving the other party. So very clear. If there is an intention to deceive the other party, fraud. If there is a no intention to deceive the other party, it is a misrepresentation. So now for that matter, we need to see the example. See this example, you will come to know what is a misrepresentation. Very simple example is there. So there are two party A and B. So now A is going to sell his TV to B. So at the time of selling the TV, what A says that TV is in good condition, television is in good condition, and A sincerely believes that TV is in good condition. But actually TV is not in good condition, but A doesn't know the fact. He thinks that it is in good condition. That is why he said at the time of selling the TV to B that TV is in good condition. But he doesn't know the fact that TV is in bad condition. See this. A sincerely believed that TV is in good condition, although he has no sufficient reason to believe that it is in good condition. Even without the reason, even without the concrete or conclusive evidence, A says that it is in good condition. After buying the TV set, B finds that it is in a bad condition. Now there is a defect in a TV. Now there is a defect in a TV. So now TV is in a bad condition. Representation made by A in this example is misrepresentation. Why it is a misrepresentation? B can cancel the contract on the grounds of misrepresentation and get the money back from A, returning the TV set, or keep silent. So he can continue to use that TV B, or he can return the TV and claim the amount. Why it is a misrepresentation on the part of A? Can you tell me? Why it is a misrepresentation on the part of A? Can you tell me why it is not a fraud and why it is a misrepresentation? You should answer now, or else it will be very difficult. So to understand the meaning. So why it is not a fraud? In this example, why it is not a fraud? Can you tell me? Why it is not a fraud? Can you tell why it is not a fraud? Anyone? Anyone? Why it is not a fraud? Unmute yourself and answer, or comment in the chat box. Anyone can answer. No answer? See, I will tell you why it is not a fraud, because here A sincerely believes. Sincerely. What do you mean by sincerely? What do you mean by the word sincerely? Sincerely means honestly. That means without an intention. Very clear. Sincerely means honestly. He believes that it is proper. But TV is not in a proper condition. That means what? There is a mistake. It is a one kind of mistake or misrepresentation on the part of A. So for that matter, it is a misrepresentation and not a fraud. So now it is very clear, I feel. So whether there is any doubt in this example. So whether this example is very clear. Any doubt regarding this example? Any doubt? No, right? No doubt, right? It is very clear now. Without an intention. Nishant is saying no doubt. So what about other? I hope there is no doubt. I hope there is no doubt. So if there is a doubt, you can ask now. No doubts, right? Yes. I hope no doubt. Okay. So now, requirements of misrepresentation. What and all requirements, or what are the rules are there for misrepresentation? That we need to see. First one, misrepresentation must be of material fact. One's mere expression of one's opinion is not a statement of fact. What do you mean by that? It must be of some material fact. That means what? Some subject must be involved. That means what? Some subject must be involved. Whether my voice is audible? Whether my voice is audible? Can you tell me whether my voice is audible now? Whether my voice is audible now? Can you tell me? Yes. So now we were discussing about this one. Okay. So what we are going to do is, yes, we will take a break because there is a connectivity issue. We will take a break. So we will join at 6:05. Okay. Thank you for watching. We will join at 6:05. Yes. Thank